What if I told you right now that the greatest engineers of North America's dense forests built gigantic apartment buildings without a single iron nail? We're used to marveling at European stone Gothic cathedrals and castles, but are you ready to learn the shocking truth about the Iroquois' real wooden palaces? Forget about modern technology, reinforced concrete, and steel beams. These incredible megastructures, capable of effortlessly withstanding the harshest, most brutal winters with multi-ton snowfalls and hurricane-force winds, were built solely by human hands. Their main tools were not iron saws, but a profound, phenomenal understanding of the laws of physics, geometry, and the hidden properties of wood. When sophisticated European architects, having arrived on the new continent, first saw these structures, they simply refused to believe their eyes. The scale and mathematical precision of these longhouses literally shattered all the conventions of Western engineering at the time. Be sure to watch this video all the way to the very last second, because today we're going to reveal the secret blueprints of these primitive skyscrapers. You'll learn how a massive wooden house capable of housing over 100 people under its roof could stand flawlessly for half a century without rotting or collapsing. And in the very end, I'll tell you about that mysterious and merciless force of nature that ultimately wiped this architectural masterpiece off the face of the earth. And spoiler alert, no, it wasn't a forest fire. Ready for a historical investigation? Then hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's head to the forests of North America. What I'm about to show you reveals the true nature of the architecture of the indigenous peoples of the Northeast. The Iroquois Longhouse was not just a dwelling, but a true engineering masterpiece of wooden architecture. The builders did not use a single piece of metal to connect the massive load-bearing structures. The whole secret lay in a deep understanding of the physical properties of fresh wood and bark. The craftsmen were masters at distributing the load throughout the entire frame of the enormous building without using any metal fasteners. The construction process began with selecting the right trunks of young trees from flexible species. The builders bent long poles at a specific angle to form sturdy arched vaults. This technique required precise calculation of the physical exertion of many strong men. The curved elements were interwoven with a complex system of natural ropes. Such a house could reach a length of up to 100 meters and a width of about 7 meters. The interior space visually resembled a long corridor with high curved ceilings. The building's architecture fully reflected the builder's worldview regarding the structure of the universe. The roof symbolized the celestial vault, protecting people from all kinds of inclement weather. Massive vertical pillars served as a metaphorical support for the entire earthly world. Creating such a structure required incredible coordination among the entire community. Groups of builders clearly divided responsibilities for gathering and processing building materials. Men were engaged in felling trees and installing heavy load-bearing structures. At the same time, the entire process took place without the use of complex lifting equipment or winches. Only simple levers and the physical strength of dozens of coordinated workers were used. The foundation of the house was laid by digging thick logs deep into the ground. The depth of the pits was calculated to prevent the soil beneath the supports from freezing. Clay mixed with small stones was tightly packed around the posts for greater stability. The lower part of the logs was pre-charred over a fire to protect them from rotting in the damp earth. This technique ensured the foundation's remarkable durability for decades. Particular attention was paid to the orientation of the longhouse relative to the cardinal directions. The building was always positioned along the prevailing wind direction of the specific region. This minimized the pressure of hurricane-force winds on the wide-side walls. The winds simply flowed around the streamlined shape of the structure, causing no harm to the wooden framework. The thoughtful layout also contributed to better lighting of the interior during the day. Every detail of the frame underwent rigorous strength testing before final installation. The wood was carefully cleaned of knots and irregularities using stone tools. The smooth surface of the logs ensured a tight fit for the outer bark cladding. Such nail-free construction techniques genuinely impress modern experts in timber architecture. For many years, it was considered impossible to build such a large-scale structure without steel fasteners. However, these engineers proved otherwise, leaving behind a remarkable architectural legacy. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these timber construction techniques. What do you think of the craftsmanship of ancient builders? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new in-depth research. The secret, passed down from generation to generation, lies in the house's unique exterior cladding. Instead of the usual smooth planks, builders used huge sheets of fresh elm or ash bark. This natural material possessed remarkable flexibility and excellent insulating properties. The bark was stripped from massive trees exclusively during the warm spring months. It was then that the sap made the outer layer as pliable as possible for processing. The finished sheets of bark were laid overlapping on a wooden frame, much like modern roof tiles. This system completely prevented rainwater from entering the living space. The lower rows were securely fastened with thick horizontal poles from the outside. The outer fastenings were tightly tied to the inner frame with strong plant fibers. This created a sort of layered structure that provided excellent protection against any precipitation. The choice of elm as the primary roofing material was far from accidental. The bark of this tree had a distinctive groove structure that allowed water to run off easily. It did not crack in severe frost or dry out under the scorching summer sun. The thickness of the elm bark sheets could reach several centimeters, creating an ultra-reliable shell. Inside such a house, a comfortable microclimate was always maintained regardless of the weather outside. A special natural sealant was used to insulate the joints between the bark sheets. Craftsmen carefully filled even the tiniest cracks with a thick mixture of clay and dry moss. This putty hardened completely as it dried, turning into a solid monolithic layer. No draft could penetrate such multi-layered wall protection. This level of thermal insulation was critical for survival during harsh winters. The surfaces of the walls were sometimes decorated with carved ornaments reflecting the history of the local clan. However, the bark's primary function remained purely practical: protection from external elements. Over time, the fresh wood took on a noble silvery gray hue under the sun's rays. The Longhouse literally blended into the surrounding forest landscape, becoming an integral part of it. This also served as excellent camouflage against possible attacks by enemies. The process of sheathing the enormous building took several long months of continuous work. It required preparing hundreds of square meters of high-quality bark without a single flaw. Material supplies were stockpiled in advance to avoid downtime during the massive construction. Storing the sheets required special conditions to prevent premature drying out and cracking. The bark was carefully stored in shaded areas under the protection of sturdy canopies. The meticulousness of the outer layer's installation directly determined the overall lifespan of the entire structure. A well-made roof could withstand torrential rains for decades. Builders took genuine pride in their work and did not allow even the slightest carelessness. Every step had been perfected by generations of ancestors who passed their knowledge down to their descendants. The technique of proper sheathing was considered a true art, accessible only to the most experienced craftsmen. Such construction solutions demonstrate an incredible level of understanding of the properties of natural materials. The craftsmen did not try to subdue nature, but skillfully used its gifts for their needs. Do you think modern materials could surpass elm bark in terms of their environmental properties without the use of chemicals? In the next chapter, you'll learn how these engineers dealt with the suffocating smoke from the fires. Ready to discover the secret of the highly complex ventilation system for a huge enclosed space? What large air conditioning manufacturers keep hidden, the Native Americans knew hundreds of years ago. Solving the problem of smoke extraction from a huge enclosed space became the true crowning achievement of their engineering ingenuity. Inside the Longhouse, dozens of fires burned constantly for heating and cooking. Without a proper ventilation system, people would simply have suffocated from the thick carbon monoxide. Engineers created a unique system of adjustable vents right in the wooden vault of the massive roof. Each interior fire had its own dedicated exhaust vent at the very top. These openings were not just holes, they were equipped with special movable flaps. The flaps were made of thick sheets of bark attached to long control poles. People below could easily adjust the angle of these massive shutters. In this way, they precisely regulated the strength of the air draft depending on the weather. During the rainy season, The upper openings were covered so that water would not fall onto the hearths. The angle of the flaps allowed raindrops to roll safely down the outer slope of the sloping roof. Meanwhile, smoke continued to escape steadily through narrow side slits in the ceilings. Adjusting the system required constant attention and a keen understanding of changes in wind direction. Ventilation attendants responded promptly to any changes in weather conditions outside. An additional supply of fresh air was provided through special vents at the very bottom of the walls. These small openings were located strictly at ground level along the entire perimeter of the Longhouse. Cold air was drawn in from below, quickly heated by the fires, and rushed upward. This created powerful natural convection, constantly renewing the atmosphere inside the enclosed building. Careful calculation of the size of the intake openings completely eliminated the occurrence of strong cold drafts. An interesting feature was the shape of the smoke vent itself in the wooden roof. It was designed to be slightly elongated so that the rising column of smoke would not disperse too quickly. The edges of the opening were further reinforced with smooth poles to improve the overall aerodynamics of the airflow. The smoke rose in a steady column, forming a warm air barrier right under the ceiling. This layer prevented the winter cold from quickly descending into the lower living area. The height of the ceilings in the house was calculated strictly to account for the formation of a dense smoke cushion. The main living space was located in an area of absolutely clean, fresh air. Thick, acrid smoke always accumulated high above the heads of people standing on the ground. On the upper levels, where it was particularly smoky, there were shelves for smoking and drying provisions. In this way, the inevitable byproduct of combustion was used by people to its maximum practical advantage. Controlling the draft required a certain skill, which was patiently taught from the earliest years. It was important not to overcool the room in winter by letting too much precious heat escape outside. The balance between fresh air and a comfortable temperature was strictly maintained by the inhabitants. On winter nights, the exhaust vents were closed to a minimum, leaving only a narrow air gap. The massive volume of wood heated during the day began to slowly release heat into the interior. The genius of this climate control system still amazes many modern civil engineers. Without using any complex mechanisms, the builders of the Longhouse ensured ideal air circulation. Each structural element performed a strictly defined function in this complex aerodynamic process. The builders learned to control wind currents, harnessing them for the benefit of the community. If you were impressed by this ancient ventilation technology, be sure to like this video. The secret that people pay thousands for lies in the skillful zoning of the interior space. The interior layout of the Longhouse resembled a complex but perfectly organized system of cells. The central axis of the enormous building was a wide, open passageway stretching from one door to the other. On either side of this main corridor, isolated family compartments were arranged symmetrically. Each compartment was separated from its neighbors by thin partitions made of smooth wooden panels. Massive two-tiered platforms lined the walls, serving as the foundation of daily life. The lower tier of the platform rose about half a meter above the ground. This reliably protected people from the dampness of the soil and cold drafts in winter. The wide lower shelf served as a permanent place for the whole family to sleep and rest. During the day, they sat there while going about their usual activities or eating meals together. The upper level was situated significantly higher and was used primarily as a spacious storage area. Spare clothing, tools, and numerous household items were neatly stored there. Items were stored in large woven baskets or sturdy bags made from tanned hides. The space beneath the lower platform was also put to use, serving as a lower storage area. It held vast supplies of firewood for the winter and bulky household tools. For every two families living directly across from each other, there was one shared hearth. The hearths were arranged along the central axis of the corridor at equal distances from one another. The hearth was lined with smooth river stones, which excelled at accumulating and retaining heat for a long time. The space around the fire was a common gathering place for the two neighboring clans. Here they cooked together, discussed the news, and spent long, cozy evenings. Every spot in the house had a strictly defined purpose and high social status. The spots closer to the center of the building were usually occupied by the most respected and experienced members of the clan. The outer compartments were traditionally reserved for young families just starting their life together. The space was organized so that people would not get in each other's way at all when moving about. The central passageway always remained completely clear for quick movement throughout the entire house. Internal partitions never reached the ceiling, leaving the upper space open. This facilitated the even distribution of heat from the hearths throughout all sections of the building. The absence of solid high walls improved overall ventilation and lighting in the most remote corners. Strict order was maintained in literally everything, from the arrangement of objects to the maintenance of cleanliness. Trash was immediately taken outside, and the earthen floor was regularly swept with bundles of stiff grass. Over time, the smooth floor surface was tightly compacted into a solid, monolithic stone. Inside the vast space, chaos or the accumulation of unnecessary items was never permitted. Every object was strictly in its place, which was critically important in the overcrowded building. The space's ergonomics allowed a vast number of people to coexist with maximum comfort. The rational use of every square meter is truly striking in its thoughtfulness and practicality. Have you ever wondered how much the modern layout of many apartments falls short of this ancient efficiency? In the next chapter, you'll learn how the inhabitants of this incredible structure endured extreme cold. Are you ready to immerse yourself in the harsh atmosphere of winter survival at -30 degrees? With the onset of the harsh winter, the Longhouse turned into a veritable wooden fortress. The temperature outside often dropped below 30 degrees, accompanied by biting northern blizzards. Snowdrifts could reach the level of the roof, forming an additional natural layer of insulation around the walls. During this difficult period, the community's entire daily life was completely confined to the safety of the building. Huge reserves of food and firewood allowed them to stay indoors for weeks on end. Maintaining a constant, life-sustaining fire became the primary task for all the building's inhabitants. The fires no longer blazed with bright, high flames. They were kept in a state of slow smoldering. The hot, deep embers provided stable and very gentle heat without wasting precious wood. The stones around the hearth were never allowed to cool. They constantly functioned as massive heating radiators. Round-the-clock watch over the fire ensured general safety and warmth for every individual family. Food during this period consisted exclusively of pre-prepared dry provisions. Thick and incredibly rich soups were cooked in large clay pots directly over the smoldering coals. Hot, fatty food helped maintain inner energy and warmed people better than any clothing. Dried smoked meat, hard nuts, and berries formed the basis of the community's daily hearty diet. Proper ration distribution of food ensured the survival of the entire clan until the arrival of spring greens. The limited space demanded particular care and movement and respect for others' peace. In winter, any sudden actions were kept to a minimum to maintain an absolutely calm atmosphere. Minor conflicts and domestic quarrels were nipped in the bud to avoid escalating tensions within the close-knit group. The ability to coexist peacefully in a confined space had been instilled in people over dozens of generations. Psychological inner comfort was just as vital for survival as the availability of firewood. Additional nighttime warmth for sleeping areas was provided by heavily heated river stones. Smooth, heavy boulders were taken from the fire, wrapped in thick pieces of leather, and placed under the blankets. They released their heat extremely slowly throughout the night, warming the sleeping people during the harshest frosts. In the morning, the completely cooled stones were returned to the hearth for another cycle of slow heating. This surprisingly simple method ensured continuous comfort during the long winter sleep. On rare, clear, windless days when the blizzard subsided, the men would go out hunting. They moved quickly through the deep, loose snow on wide-woven snowshoes, tracking their prey. A successful hunt brought fresh meat, which became a true gastronomic feast for the entire community. The hunter's return with food was always accompanied by a joyful, heartfelt liveliness in the house. But most of the time, people preferred to stay in the warmth of their reliable wooden walls. The cold interior walls of the house were further insulated with tightly suspended reed mats. These created another powerful air layer that prevented the cold from penetrating directly. A thick white layer of snow on the roof also served as an excellent natural external insulator. Builders never cleared the snow cover, understanding its incredible importance for retaining heat. The entire massive structure worked in harmony with winter nature, not against its laws. Only a truly sturdy wooden house could survive 50 such harsh, extreme winters. The wood of the frame withstood severe temperature fluctuations, and the immense weight of snow on the arches. Every cold, dark season successfully weathered was absolute proof of the ancient architect's craftsmanship. The Longhouse was not merely a temporary shelter, it was the guarantee of the survival of an entire people. This structure was a true bastion of safety in the very heart of a merciless forest region. What happens behind closed doors forever shatters popular myths about the chaos of tribal life. Organizing the communal life of 20 large families under one roof required perfect internal discipline. The Longhouse was an incredibly complex social mechanism with clear, unbreakable rules of conduct. It was not simply a scattered crowd of relatives, but a strictly hierarchical and perfectly ordered community. At the head of this highly complex social structure invariably stood the most experienced and wise woman of the clan. The authority of this matriarch, or mother of the clan, was absolute and unquestionable to all. She personally made key decisions regarding the distribution of resources and the maintenance of strict internal order. All inhabitants of the vast house belonged to her direct lineage, forming an extended family. Husbands moved into their wives' wooden homes, integrating into the structure of her clan. This ensured the rock-solid stability of the transmission of ancient traditions and material values. The communal living space was divided equally, but with strict regard for the status of each community member. The central, cozy sections near the main hearths were always reserved for the older generations and respected leaders. They consistently served as guardians of peace and ensured compliance with the complex daily etiquette. The younger generations watched the elders with the utmost attention, learning the norms of behavior in the larger community. Respect for age and wise experience was a fundamental, unbreakable rule of life in the house. Monitoring the rational use of firewood and maintaining the fire was a sacred duty of those on duty. Each family, in strict rotation, assigned hardy individuals to keep the heat up at night. Any irresponsibility in this critical matter could easily cost the lives of the entire vast community. Hard work done together for the good of the home united people far more strongly than any blood ties. Every resident understood their direct personal responsibility for the well-being of all the other inhabitants. The distribution of heavy household duties was as clear and efficient as possible. Groups of women would go out together to gather various roots, while the hardy men would band together to hunt. Upon their return, without exception, the fruits of their labor were immediately stored in the communal storerooms of the Longhouse. No one ever shirked work, as this would immediately lead to harsh public censure. Lazy or overly selfish people risked losing the support of their entire clan forever. In the free time of the evening, the house always became a place for the transmission of ancient oral traditions. People gathered closely around the central warm hearths to listen to the long tales of the gray-haired elders. These legendary stories contained all the wisdom of the people, their history, and their strict moral principles. The voice of the experienced storyteller echoed softly beneath the high, dark wooden vaults of the enormous building. Such regular gatherings were instrumental in maintaining the spiritual unity of all 20 resident families. A strict and well-calibrated social system completely ruled out the possibility of anyone being abandoned. Frail elders always received the best portion of food and a spot closer to the warm fire. Caring for the physically weak members of society was an absolutely natural law of life within this commune. The Longhouse functioned as an incredibly well-coordinated, unified organism where every cell supported the others. This was the true creative power of the social engineering of the indigenous peoples of the Northeast. Such iron discipline allowed the Native Americans to create one of the most sustainable societies in history. The invisible social structure worked just as reliably as the building's wooden frame itself. Could a modern, independent person live harmoniously in a community of 100 people without personal boundaries? In the next chapter, you'll learn how this vast community solved the problem of storing a year's worth of food inside the house. Are you ready to discover the secrets of amazing long-term food preservation without the refrigerators we're used to? Providing a steady supply of food for 100 people throughout the long winter required enormous amounts of provisions. The Longhouse successfully served not only as a cozy dwelling, but also as a huge, reliable food storage facility. Under the highest point of the roof, amid the thick smoke of hot fires, rows of sturdy poles were set up. Hanging from them in heavy, dense clusters were long bundles of corn, beans, and various forest herbs. The hot smoke constantly acted as an ideal natural preservative, protecting the food from mold and rot. Ripe corn formed the basis of the entire diet and was always stored with particular care. The ears were tightly woven together by their dry husks into incredibly long and heavy golden garlands. These massive garlands were suspended high above their heads, where the air was driest and hottest. The hard, dried kernels could be stored in such ideal conditions for several years without losing their nutritional value. The huge golden rows of ears of corn right under the ceiling were a clear testament to the clan's wealth and industriousness. Meat also underwent a long process of intense hot smoking directly beneath the house's vaulted ceilings. Thin, long strips of fillet were carefully laid out on special wooden racks high above the hearths. The constant heat drew all excess moisture from the meat, while the smoke infused it with powerful antiseptic substances. The resulting product became as hard as wood, yet incredibly high in calories and filling. It was carefully placed in large birch bark boxes and stored on the upper, hidden tiers of the sleeping platforms. The gathered nuts and dried wild berries were poured into large, bulbous vessels made of fired clay. The thick clayware reliably protected these sweet provisions from drying out and losing their flavor. The vessels were placed tightly along the walls in the darkest and coolest corners of the huge Longhouse. Access to these special reserves was strictly controlled by the oldest women of the vast community. They distributed small portions of these delicacies only on special occasions or during the coldest winter days. Maple syrup, another incredibly important product, was harvested in vast quantities in early spring. It was boiled down for a long time until it became an extremely thick syrup or solid, dark, sweet sugar. Pieces of this maple sugar were placed in birch bark containers and stored for many years without spoiling at all. This product served not only as a rare delicacy, but also as a powerful source of quick, essential energy. A supply of this sweet gold was always considered the most important strategic resource in absolutely every log home. The sense of dried meat, dried herbs, and smoked foods blended into a unique, rich aroma. This intense scent was the ultimate symbol of people's sense of security and confidence in the future. The enormous volume of supplies gathered clearly demonstrated the incredible efficiency of the 20 families working together. No single small family could have harvested and preserved that much food on its own. The Longhouse reliably concentrated the results of the entire community's labor in one warm and safe place. The humidity inside the building was strictly controlled using the same ingenious ventilation system. Any excess moisture from the boiling soup pots was immediately vented out through the open upper vents. Maintaining a stable, dry climate was critical to preventing the spoilage of precious food supplies. The thick bark walls also excelled at drawing excess moisture away from the entire living space. The house literally breathed, maintaining a perfect balance between warmth, fresh air, and the necessary dryness. The matriarchs kept strict track of all supplies with remarkable precision without using any form of writing. The clan mothers perfectly remembered the exact location of every basket and the contents of every underground pit. They knew with absolute certainty exactly how many days the remaining meat or corn supplies would last. The diet was strictly regulated depending on the number of weeks remaining until spring. Such rigorous mathematical calculation completely ruled out the possibility of sudden starvation at the very end of the long winter. This storage system transformed the Longhouse into a self-sufficient fortress capable of withstanding a prolonged siege by nature. The massive structure was perfectly suited not only for human habitation, but also for storing provisions. Absolutely every element of the wooden structure served a dual or even triple practical function. Architecture and daily life harmoniously merged into a single, absolutely inseparable process of the struggle for survival. This stunning harmony ensured the prosperity of the people in the incredibly harsh northern climate. Only constant and incredibly meticulous maintenance allowed a wooden structure to stand for a full half-century. The long, massive house was never a static structure. It required regular care and repair. Every warm spring, after the heavy snows had melted, the men conducted a thorough, detailed inspection of the entire frame. Particular attention was always paid to the condition of the massive load-bearing posts and the integrity of the exterior cladding. Any severely damaged elements had to be replaced immediately before the long rainy season set in. Over time, the outer bark dried out significantly, cracked in places, and gradually lost its moisture-resistant properties. The weakened, dry sheets were carefully removed, and new layers of fresh elm bark were quickly installed in their place. The old bark was never discarded. It was shredded and actively used as excellent kindling for fires. The process of regularly renewing the outer cladding was continuous and spanned many long years. The house constantly and methodically renewed its skin as if it were a living, gigantic organism. The sturdy fastening straps made of plant fibers also had a limited lifespan. Under constant strong wind loads and extreme temperature fluctuations, they gradually and inevitably stretched. Builders regularly and methodically tightened the loosened wooden joints and wove in new, very strong strands. Particular attention was always paid to the fastenings at the very top of the roof, which bore the brunt of the weather. The strength of these ties guaranteed the absolute stability of the entire massive vaulted wooden ceiling. The interior foundation posts, despite mandatory preliminary fire hardening, could begin to rot gradually. If a wooden support lost its stability, it was immediately reinforced with additional sturdy fresh poles. New oak logs were dug in tightly next to the old ones and firmly tied to the main load-bearing frame. This procedure allowed the structure's lifespan to be significantly extended without completely dismantling the heavy, multi-layered roof. Over time, the house's foundation inevitably became overgrown with a whole forest of thick wooden support columns. The earthen floor inside the gigantic house also constantly required the utmost attention and regular leveling. In areas of the heaviest daily foot traffic, depressions formed, which were immediately filled with fresh clay. The floor was carefully tamped down with very heavy wooden logs until it achieved the perfect smoothness of stone. Around the hearths, men regularly replaced large river stones that had cracked from the constant, intense heat. Perfect cleanliness and order were maintained by the community not only for aesthetic reasons, but also for engineering considerations. The chimney system constantly required thorough periodic cleaning to remove accumulated soot and wood resin. Strong men would climb up onto the steep roof and carefully scrape away the thick layer of deposits using sharp wooden scrapers. The movable flaps were generously lubricated with animal fat to completely prevent squeaking and dangerous jamming of the mechanism. The free movement of the dampers was absolutely essential for the safe removal of carbon monoxide during the harsh winter. The ventilation mechanism was always kept in perfect working order under all conditions. Strict fire safety was the foremost concern of absolutely everyone living in this wooden building. Burning fires were never left without the close supervision of those on duty, even for the briefest moment. Large, spacious birch bark buckets, filled to the brim with clean water, were always placed near every hearth. The wooden structural elements above the fire were covered with a layer of wet clay for reliable protection against accidental sparks. Strict adherence to these simple rules saved the house from certain destruction for many, many years. The enormous efforts of 20 families to maintain order were distributed evenly among all residents. The total amount of work was simply colossal, but thanks to collective labor, the house always remained in perfect condition. Every joint on the beams was under the constant watch of dozens of extremely attentive pairs of eyes. The attitude toward this building was one of deep respect, as if it were a living and powerful guardian of the ancient clan. The house reciprocated this affection fully, providing incredibly reliable protection against any of nature's whims. After several decades, the original wooden frame became heavily overgrown with new layers of wood and bark. The enormous building became much more massive, stronger, and visually more imposing with each passing year. Generations were born and died quietly within its thick walls, while it stood proud and unshakable. The history of this maintenance is a striking example of the incredible diligence and foresight of the ancient craftsmen. This continuous, arduous process of creation allowed them to build true architectural wonders right in the wild forest. In the wide valley of the Mohawk River, one of the most famous longhouses once stood proudly. It was built in the early 17th century and heroically withstood exactly 50 harsh winters. This colossus was about 110 meters long, making it a veritable wooden palace. It was erected by the finest craftsmen of the powerful Turtle Clan, who poured all their expertise into its construction. This gigantic house became a lasting symbol of the power and prosperity of the entire local Native American community. To build it, the builders had to cut down more than 1,000 young and very flexible tree trunks. Elm bark was collected over the course of 3 long spring seasons by huge groups of workers. The foundation was prudently reinforced with thick oak logs, capable of remaining completely rot-free in the damp earth for decades. The framework was tied together with double-tight knots made from the strongest fibers of harvested wild hemp. The ancient engineers applied all the most advanced architectural techniques of their turbulent era to this building. Over the course of 50 years, the colossal house withstood several powerful hurricanes and record-breaking snowfalls. In one of the harshest years, snow buried the structure up to the very roof, but the wooden arches easily withstood the load. The building has always stood as a monolith, successfully fending off all the blows of the elements with its carefully calibrated, streamlined form. The residents only occasionally reinforced the internal supports and continued to go about their daily lives with complete calm. The reliability of the entire massive structure far exceeded even the wildest expectations of its wise creators. Within these soot-stained walls, 3 full generations of incredibly brave warriors and very wise women grew up. This house was a silent witness to grand councils where the fates of entire forest peoples were decided. Thousands of kilograms of corn and hundreds of vessels of maple syrup were safely stored in its huge, dark pantries. It provided security and stability, allowing the clan to prosper and rapidly grow in numbers. Every log has forever absorbed the history, smells, and voices of dozens of generations of people. Over time, the thick interior pillars had blackened from ingrained soot, transforming into a polished monolith of coal. The outer bark had taken on a deep silvery hue, covered with noble green moss right at the base. The enormous house had completely merged with the surrounding forest, becoming a natural extension of the mighty natural landscape. To everyone, it seemed absolutely eternal and indestructible, like the stone cliffs towering over the valley of a turbulent river. People sincerely believed that their sturdy wooden fortress would stand for at least another century. The matriarch, who had ruled the household without interruption for the past 20 years, knew every single wooden log of the house intimately. She personally oversaw the annual complex repairs and strictly ensured that perfect order was maintained. Her boundless wisdom always ensured perfect discipline among the vast number of diverse relatives. Not a single major quarrel had ever disrupted the peaceful, measured rhythm of life within these smoke-blackened walls. The stability of this community relied in large part on the incredible strength of their shared wooden home. Surprisingly, in half a century, not a single major accidental fire had ever occurred inside. Strict adherence to all fire safety rules worked flawlessly day after day. Those on duty never once fell asleep at their post, and the water supplies were always full. Fire always remained a docile, faithful servant, reliably warming people and preparing hot meals for them. Taming this element inside a massive wooden box was the crowning achievement of ancient Native American engineering. This particular legendary longhouse has rightfully entered local lore as a benchmark of architecture. Its ideal proportions and construction methods were carefully passed down to young craftsmen as a model to follow. It unequivocally proved that wood, clay, and bark in skilled hands can rival stone in strength. For many years, it faithfully served as a shelter, a reliable storehouse, a meeting hall, and simply a warm, welcoming home. But even the greatest and most legendary structures have their inevitable and predetermined end. The end of the great era of this huge, long house came completely unexpectedly in the midst of a dry autumn. 50 years of impeccable, reliable service were cut short by a catastrophic, fateful turn of events from outside. A fierce forest fire, sparked by a lightning strike many miles from the settlement, was rapidly approaching. A powerful hurricane-force wind drove a towering wall of fire straight toward the valley, leaving no time for hesitation. The wooden fortress, which had faithfully served the people for many years, proved utterly defenseless against the elements. The entire community managed to evacuate in a hurry, taking with them only the bare essentials and their most valuable weapons. With incredible sorrow, the people watched the approaching catastrophe from the opposite, safe bank of the river. The thick, dry bark, which had perfectly protected the house from rain, now became excellent combustible fuel. Sparks, carried in abundance by the hurricane-force wind, instantly ignited the upper tiers of the old dry elm roof. The fire raced rapidly across the dry leaves, engulfing a vast area of the roof in a matter of minutes. The smoke vents, which had created perfect airflow, now worked against the building itself. They sucked all the hot oxygen inside with great force, instantly swelling the flames to unimaginably gigantic proportions. The lightweight wooden interior partitions and dry sleeping platforms burst into flames inside like dry gunpowder. The enormous annual stockpiles of animal fat and dried meat stored under the ceiling only monstrously intensified the overall heat. The temperature inside quickly reached such levels that the massive river stones of the hearths began to crack and burst. After the terrible fire, only a smooth, thick layer of white ash remained where the giant house had stood. Not a single trace remained of the 1,000-kilogram supplies of food, hides, and carved wooden utensils. The ground was baked several meters deep by the intense heat, destroying even the deep underground seed storage pits. The great collective labor of 3 generations of builders vanished forever, dissolving into the smoke of a wild forest fire. Nature, which had generously provided the materials for construction, took them back in its ruthless and inexorable manner. The Indians regarded such inevitable disasters with a surprising and profound philosophical calm. For them, the sudden destruction of their home was not the end of the world, but merely the completion of one of life's cycles. All accumulated material possessions were considered temporary, and their loss did not mean the complete collapse of their world. The greatest value lay in the close-knit community itself, and the priceless knowledge preserved in the clear minds of the survivors. Plans for a new Longhouse were already taking shape in the minds of the young engineers of the Turtle Clan. The new enormous house was being built with due consideration for the experience accumulated over the previous 50 years of life. Minor flaws in the old design were corrected, and the most successful solutions were applied with renewed vigor. The technology of complex construction, entirely without metal nails, continued to live on and evolve in new projects. Architectural mastery was passed down, reliably ensuring the survival of the people in the harsh winter forest conditions. The burned-down wooden giant remained forever in oral legends as a vivid symbol of their former greatness. The history of this particular building perfectly illustrates the very essence of indigenous wooden architecture. It was an incredibly functional, eco-friendly, and large-scale structure, yet at the same time incredibly fragile. Fire was their greatest ally inside the house and their most terrifying mortal enemy outside. This delicate balance on the edge of survival shaped the unique, incredibly strong, and wise character of the local Native Americans. Their amazing ability to build masterpieces from nothing and start all over again inspires sincere admiration. The long wooden houses of the Iroquois are a thing of the distant past, having been supplanted by the brick and concrete of European colonizers. However, the ancient principles behind their construction are still being actively studied by modern environmental engineers. The use of renewable natural materials and natural complex ventilation is more relevant than ever in our high-tech age. This story convincingly proves that ingenious technological solutions existed long before the large-scale industrial revolution. The profound wisdom of ancient architects lives on, constantly reminding us of the power of the human inventive mind. What do you think of the story of this incredible wooden skyscraper from centuries past? Be sure to suggest topics in the comments for future videos that you'd like to see on our channel. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new in-depth dives into the history of survival and daily life.